Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Jim Bellacera, sitting next to Tatyana Shkoenaya, originally from the Ukraine. And you'll find that out in about 2 or 3 seconds here when she starts to speak. And she's a lovely woman. She's incredibly ambitious, and she's really well connected. And we're going to talk about that in another part of the story. But we're going to take the next few minutes, and we're going to talk about what really helped develop you and the person you are today. And I know that there's a lot to talk about, but we've only got about 5 or 6 minutes to really talk about it. And originally you were obviously born in the Ukraine, and your story starts there. And I'd like to let's start there with your story and help us to understand why you're so ambitious and why you do all the amazing things you do in your life today. So tell me a little bit about growing up in the Ukraine.
I grew up in a family where my mom was an engineer and my dad was a business person, even though that sounds very strange coming from a very conservative country, former Soviet Union. But my dad became one of the most successful people in the country during the Soviet Union era. So I watched my dad do a lot of great things, and it was very interesting. My mom was a little bit different. She worked for a big factory, diamond factory, and she did very well for her own self doing a corporate job.
So while you were growing up, you got to experience, I guess, in some terms, the life of luxury, yes?
To some degree.
To some degree, but
yes.
then you
we
also
couldn't show it in Ukraine, in the former Soviet Union, yes.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it was prohibited to be successful. You are not very welcomed if you're a very successful person.
Oh my goodness. But then, when the fall of the Soviet Union, you then experienced the exact opposite. Explain that.
Well, what happened to my family is that I seen my dad rise very high and then fall very down. We owned factories, we owned a lot of different businesses, traded a lot of great things. And then when the Soviet Union broke up, my dad was threatened a lot of times to be killed. And a lot of policies came into place.
During the time that your father was being threatened, did you know that?
I never knew.
So your parents kept that from you?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So then you saw what I would call the life of luxury, even though you weren't allowed to show it. But as far as money goes and so forth, money was not really an issue in your family, right?
It was not. Yeah, yeah. We had everything that we needed for the basics.
And then after the fall, then your father began to lose everything, which meant the money stopped coming in. Is that right?
Yes.
So what happened?
Well, it was a misunderstanding, I guess. Like my dad went outside of his zone of influence and started a business in a different part of the country, and so he lost his control. And that's where I learned a big lesson early in life, that a lot of business that you can do and be very successful if you have the right connections. So in his case, he didn't have powerful connection at that time in that particular space. So
what, I mean, obviously growing up in all of this, I mean, it's got to be interesting. I mean, of course, me growing up here in the United States, we never experienced the rise and the fall, and then, having to earn it all back again outside of our own losses. I mean, your father's was out of his control. But did your father make a comeback? Did he?
Yeah, he became a consultant. From owning several companies, he now consults with a lot of companies. So he's very active. However, it's not the same.
Sure, I understand.
But one lesson I learned early from my childhood is that my dad said, you know what? My parents never gave me anything, and I'm not giving you anything either. You will make it big on your own. The biggest gift that I can give you is confidence and the belief that I believe that you can do it and you will do it. So he made me pay for my private university. He made me pay for absolutely everything in my life that I got.